stepped out into the fenced-in section of the forest, the cool air of the outdoors hitting my face as I closed the door behind me. The atmosphere was eerily quiet, and I could feel my senses sharpening as I made my way into the dense forest, eyes and ears alert for any signs of ignited chica. I ventured further into the forest, my footsteps light and my eyes scanning the area for any hint of movement or signs of ignited chica. The shadows of the trees danced eerily in the faint moonlight, and I could hear the occasional sound of twigs snapping in the distance, making my heart race with anticipation. The forest was blanketed in a thick fog that gave the area an eerie and creepy atmosphere. The lamps on the wooden lampposts cast a dim yellow light, carving out small pools of illumination in the foggy darkness. The fog itself had a dark, dirty brown hue that added to the already ominous environment. The forest was filled with a cacophony of natural sounds. The crickets chirped loudly, their chorus filling the air, and the ambient noises of the forest added to the overall eerie atmosphere. The wind rustled through the trees, making their branches sway and creating occasional noises that made it difficult to determine what was natural and what might be the sound of ignited chica lurking nearby. As I pressed on through the forest, I kept my eyes peeled for any sign of ignited chica. Every shadow and movement in my peripheral vision made my heart skip a beat, and every snapping twig or rustle of leaves sent a chill down my spine. Despite the fear and tension, I kept my focus, my M60 ready in my hands and my senses on high alert. Suddenly, I heard a rustle in the bushes to my right. I froze, my heart racing as I raised my M60 and trained it on the spot where I had heard the noise. My eyes scanned the shadows, looking for any sign of the animatronic. I slowly began to move towards the bushes, my muscles tense and my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I realized it was just the wind that had caused the bushes to rustle. Despite the false alarm, I knew I had to remain vigilant, knowing that ignited chica could be lurking anywhere in the forest, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I took a deep breath, letting out a sigh as I continued walking through the fenced-in forest area. The air was cool and damp, the fog still hanging in the air like a thick blanket. Every step I took seemed to echo through the silence, making me feel a bit exposed and vulnerable in the dark, foggy forest. I knew that I had to stay alert for any sign of ignited chica, who could be watching me from the shadows. The solid sound of my combat boots stomping on the wet ground of the forest was both enjoyable and reassuring. It made me feel tough and fearless, almost invincible as I moved through the ominous surroundings. The rhythm of my footsteps provided a slight sense of comfort in the creepy forest, but I knew that I couldn't let my guard down. I had been walking through the foggy forest for about 15 minutes, the silence and the eerie atmosphere making the time feel even longer. The fog was thicker in some areas than others, making it difficult to see anything beyond a few feet ahead. Despite the feeling of being completely alone, I knew that ignited chica was somewhere nearby, probably watching me from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. I was startled as I heard the sudden fast metal footsteps in the grass behind me. My heart jumped into my throat as I spun around and saw ignited chica frozen in place, her expressionless face staring at me blankly. The animatronic was mere feet away, and the sight of the massive metal creature in the foggy darkness sent a shiver down my back. As I pointed my M60 machine gun at ignited chica, she let out a loud, screeching sound that resembled fear. Without hesitation, she turned and bolted away, dashing through the fog in the opposite direction as quickly as she could. A grin spread across my face as I watched ignited chica flee in terror from the sight of my M60 machine gun. The thought of being able to scare off the dangerous animatronic with just my weapon was both amusing and empowering. Without further thought, I decided to chase after her, wanting to toy with the animatronic and show her who was really in control. I pursued ignited chica through the dense forest, the sound of her fleeing footsteps loud and panicked. The fog hampered my vision and made it difficult to keep her in sight, but I was determined to catch up to her and have some fun at her expense. I chased ignited chica around the forest for a good 10 minutes, weaving through the trees and navigating the foliage as best I could in the foggy darkness. The animatronic's footsteps echoed through the air, her panicked movements leading me on a wild goose chase through the foggy terrain. After chasing ignited chica for several minutes, I finally had her where I wanted her. I raised my M60 and fired several shots directly at her, the bullets tearing through her metal frame and damaging her systems. Ignited, Chica let out a pained screech as she stumbled and fell to the ground, her body going limp as her systems powered down, and she shut down completely. As Ignited Chica lay deactivated on the forest floor, I couldn't help but do a little victory dance and pose, feeling a sense of accomplishment in taking down the dangerous animatronic. With a satisfied smirk on my face, I turned and began making my way back to the house, my mind already focused on the next challenge ahead, Ignited Foxy. I returned to the house through the back door, the adrenaline from the encounter with Ignited Chica still pumping through my veins. I knew that Ignited Foxy was waiting in the attic, and I had to prepare myself for the encounter with the stalking animatronic. I checked the ammo box attached to my M60, making sure I had enough ammunition for when I confronted Ignited Foxy. To my relief, I saw that I still had plenty of ammo left, and I mentally prepared myself for the dangerous encounter ahead. I ascended the stairs that led to the attic, the wooden steps creaking beneath my feet. The atmosphere was eerily quiet, and I knew that Ignited Foxy was lurking up there, silently watching and stalking me as I approached. I stepped into the attic, the cramped and dimly lit space feeling oppressively small as I started to look around. The attic was filled with all sorts of boxes and old furniture, which provided plenty of hiding spots for Ignited Foxy to lurk in. I kept my guard up, constantly scanning my surroundings for any signs of the animatronic. The attic's already cramped space was made even more confusing by its small maze-like layout, with walls of storage boxes and old furniture creating narrow passageways and dead ends. It was almost like a labyrinth, and I knew that it would be difficult to maneuver through, especially since Ignited Foxy was lurking somewhere in the maze, stalking me like a predator stalks its prey. I continued to walk through the attic, carefully navigating through the maze-like layout of the cramped space. The silence was deafening, and every creak of the wooden floorboards or rustle of boxes made me jump, expecting Ignited Foxy to jump out from one of the dark corners at any moment. As I continued exploring the attic, I began to realize that I couldn't find hide nor hair of Ignited Foxy anywhere. I wondered if the animatronic had seen my weapon and military uniform and was too scared to come out and confront me, much like Ignited Chica had been. The thought of Ignited Foxy being too scared to come out and fight made me smile with confidence. I began to methodically search through the various hiding spots in the attic, looking behind every box and piece of old furniture, hoping to find the animatronic tucked away in one of the dark corners. After about 10 minutes of searching, I finally found Ignited Foxy hiding behind a stack of boxes, his massive frame trembling with fear. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself, seeing the once fearsome animatronic quivering like a scared puppy. As I approached the trembling Ignited Foxy, I set down my M60 machine gun safely on the floor. I wasn't going to use it on the frightened animatronic. Instead, I planned to take him down with my bare hands. I cracked my knuckles, anticipating the satisfaction of taking down the once terrifying animatronic with nothing but my own strength. I immediately started to beat the crap out of Ignited Foxy, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks. With each impact, the animatronic let out a loud, metallic shriek of pain, his massive frame shaking with each hit. It was satisfying to see the once fearsome character reduced to a quivering mess as I took him down with nothing but my bare hands. After beating Ignited Foxy for about 5 minutes, I picked up my M60 machine gun and walked back to the stairs, leaving the broken and sparking animatronic behind. His massive frame was bent and twisted, and he was twitching and sparking as if he was struggling to stay operational. The sound of his mangled form shuddering against the attic floor was both satisfying and menacing at the same time. As I descended the stairs back to the first floor, I couldn't help but crack a smile and let out a low chuckle at the sight of Ignited Foxy beaten and broken in the attic. The feeling of triumph washed over me, knowing that I had taken down 2 dangerous animatronics with nothing but my M60 and my bare hands. As I was on my way to the front door, my phone vibrated in my pocket, interrupting my thoughts. I pulled it out and checked the screen, wondering who could be trying to contact me. When I looked at the screen, I saw it was a weather alert notifying me that the storm was intensifying to a dangerous level. My mood changed from victorious to worried as I read the notification, realizing that the already harsh conditions outside were about to get even worse. As I continued reading the weather alert, I noticed that it not only warned of stronger winds and heavier rain, but also of intensified lightning flashes. The thought of being stuck outside in the worsening weather conditions sent a pang of unease through me. I quickly hurried out the front door and dashed towards my military Crusader Jeep. As I got closer, I noticed the wind picking up and the rain getting heavier, the weather already worsening significantly. With a sense of urgency, I quickly hopped into the driver's seat and started the engine, mentally preparing myself for the even harsher weather conditions outside. I swung the Jeep around and started driving down the dirt path, the vehicle's powerful engine roaring as it moved. Despite the worsening weather, I kept a firm grip on the steering wheel, determined to get back to the main road as quickly as possible. The rain was coming down harder and the wind was increasing, making the dirt path more slippery and difficult to navigate. The dirt path had transformed into a muddy mess, but thankfully, my Jeep's tires were made for driving through such conditions. The tires gripped the mud and propelled the vehicle forward as I navigated through the rough terrain. Despite the slick and slippery road, the Jeep powered through the mud with relative ease, making decent progress towards the main road. As I continued driving through the treacherous conditions, I had only one thought going through my mind, making it back to my home safely. The sky was getting darker and the wind was howling, the intensity of the storm increasing with every passing moment. I kept my focus on the road, determined to reach the safety of my house before the storm got even worse. As I was driving through the storm, I heard a loud snapping sound, followed by a thud as a tree branch fell in my path. My heart skipped a beat as I realized how close it had come to landing on the path. But with a swift maneuver, I managed to drive past it just in time. The incident served as a reminder of the dangerous conditions I was facing and how important it was to stay alert and focused on the road. As I continued navigating the treacherous dirt path, I kept a watchful eye on the trees around me, wary of any more falling branches or debris that could pose a threat to my drive. The trees seemed to sway and creak with the strength of the wind, and I knew that I had to be extra vigilant in order to avoid any dangerous obstacles on the path. Despite the difficult conditions, I kept my focus and attention on the road, determined to reach the main road safely. After 5 minutes of careful driving, I finally made it back to the main road and turned north, the tires of my Jeep gripping the asphalt and the vehicle picking up speed. Despite the storm and the difficult conditions outside, the main road was a slight relief as it was more solid and stable than the dirt path. As I continued driving north on the main road, the storm outside intensified with lightning flashing across the sky and thunder booming loudly in the distance. The combination of lightning and thunder caused by the worsening weather created an ominous and foreboding atmosphere. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of lightning, followed by an earth-shaking crash of thunder that echoed through the air. The noise was so deafening and loud that it felt as if a giant had clapped its hands right next to me. The Jeep shook and rattled with the force of the thunderous sound as I momentarily lost focus, my ears ringing and my heart skipping a beat at the unexpected cacophony. I reached up and rubbed my ears, trying to clear out the ringing sound caused by the loud thunder. After a moment, my hearing returned to normal, and I focused my attention back on the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as I continued driving forward through the worsening storm. As I continued my drive through the storm, my mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the trees that lined the road. The strong wind was causing them to sway and creak menacingly, and I couldn't shake the feeling that one of them might come crashing down onto the road at any moment. I kept a watchful eye on the trees, wary of any sudden movements or sounds that might signal an impending disaster. After approximately 10 minutes of cautious driving, I left the dense forest behind and entered a scenic open field. The change in scenery was a welcome distraction from the dark and ominous atmosphere of the storm. The vast field stretched out before me, the wind causing the tall grass to ripple like waves in the sea. As I continued driving through the open field, I couldn't help but worry about the strong winds blowing debris onto the road. Although my Jeep was built with strong reinforced metal, which allowed it to drive through large objects without sustaining any damage, I I still didn't want a chance getting a flat tire or damaging the vehicle. I kept a watchful eye on the road ahead, scanning for any signs of potential hazards that might have been carried by the powerful gusts of wind. My anxiety continued to grow as I looked around, concerned that the strong winds could indicate the presence of a tornado somewhere in the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I imagined the dangerous vortex tearing through the open field, potentially ripping up everything in its path. I clutched the steering wheel tighter, my senses on high alert for any signs of a developing tornado, whether it be the sound of a whirling wind or the eerie glow of a funnel cloud. The thought of a tornado in the darkness at night made my heart sink. A tornado at any time is a dangerous and terrifying phenomenon, but the element of darkness makes it even deadlier. The potential for the invisible vortex to move around silently in the night, disguised by the black sky, was a horrifying thought. I knew that the only possible way to spot a tornado in the darkness was if the intermittent lightning flashes from the storm helped to momentarily illuminate its path, but that was also a risky gamble. I peered through the darkness, using the intermittent lightning flashes to scan the surroundings for any sign of a tornado. Thankfully, there was no indication of a vortex, and it appeared to be just an intense thunderstorm. A wave of relief washed over me as I realized that the danger of a tornado was non-existent, and I continued driving through the open field, my mind somewhat at ease. After approximately 10 minutes of driving, I took a right turn and pulled into the neighborhood where I lived. The storm was still raging outside, the strong winds shaking the trees and the rain pelting against the Jeep. I pulled up to my house, the familiar sight bringing a sense of relief and comfort, even though the storm continued to worsen outside. I hurried out of the Jeep and ran to the front door, unlocking it and quickly bolting inside. The storm outside raged on, the wind and rain causing a roaring symphony of sound. Once inside, I took a moment to catch my breath, letting out a sigh of relief, thankful to be back at home where I was safe from the storm and any animatronic dangers. As soon as I caught my breath, I headed into the kitchen to get myself a glass of water. The sound of the storm outside was still audible from inside the house, but the solid walls provided a sense of security and protection. After quenching my thirst, I made my way upstairs to my bedroom, ready to unwind and get some much-needed rest after my intense experiences. I stripped out of my military uniform, the rough fabric replaced by the soft and comfortable material of my pajamas. I carefully hung my military cap on a hook near the door, feeling a strange sense of formality as I put my uniform away. After putting my weapons safely away in a secure place, I slipped into the comfortable pajamas, ready to finally get some rest after an incredibly eventful day. As I settled into bed, I grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV. I watched a few minutes of whatever was on, my mind still replaying the intense events of the day. Despite the desire to stay up and process what had happened, my eyelids grew heavier, and before I knew it, I drifted off into a deep and blissfully peaceful sleep. I turned off the TV, and the sound of the storm outside provided a soothing background as I snuggled deeper into my bed, letting myself relax and unwind. The fierce winds and the pitter-patter of rain on the windows created a calming atmosphere, and before long, I found my mind drifting into a deep and rejuvenating sleep. As my mind began to fade into sleep, a thought crossed it, wondering about the adventures that tomorrow would bring. The events of today had been intense and unexpected, and it made me curious about what new challenges or experiences lay ahead. With a hint of excitement and anticipation, I drifted off into a peaceful slumber, my mind pondering the possibilities of the adventures yet to come.